Hello and welcome to You Are the Magic podcast. My name is Kylie James and I am your host. And I'm so pleased to welcome my guest today, Rochelle Von Berger. Hi Rochelle, how are you going?
Oh, I'm so well, Kylie, and thank you so much for inviting me to have a chat with you this afternoon.
Oh, that's it's more than happy for you to chat. We've had many conversations over the years. To our listeners, Rochelle and I have known each other for, oh gosh, probably close to 25 years now. I'm going to say maybe not quite that long. So we know a fair bit about each other, and we've watched each other go through ups and downs of life and
Also,
different journeys. And that's it. A bit of everything. So, yeah, you're one of the people that I really wanted to invite on the podcast because I know more recently, particularly in the last 5 years or so, you've really upped your game, maybe, or upped your investment on really your personal development and your professional development and finding your own magic again. And I know that's a journey that I've been on for such a long time. And so to witness you and to watch you go through what you're doing has just been an absolute pleasure. And I wanted to be able to share that with more people and us have a conversation about, what have our aha moments been? What have the roller coaster moments been? And how did you start, go about it? All of those sorts of things. So does that sound good to you if that's where we start?
absolutely, and you're very kind. I've loved our ups and downs, and as I said, our twirls. And there's so much, so many lessons, so many ahas. So the next 45 minutes to an hour might not be enough, but that's okay. There's always another time.
There's always an episode two that we can do, that's right. So firstly, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, yeah, so the listeners can understand you.
Yeah, thanks, Kylie. Who am I? That's a really big question and something that I've really grappled with kind of my whole life because who am I? And I remember like when I was in high school and there's a whole lot of pressure, people asking you, what are you going to do after school? I grew up in a really, really small town, and the only thing that I knew, because I didn't really know what I was going to do or who I was going to be, but the only thing I knew is that it wasn't going to be staying in that town. It was really small, and I had some really good friends, but it was a very closed-minded community for the most part, which really doesn't gel with my values. I'm a pretty open person, but I just love meeting new people and understanding people. Like I never thought that I was a people person like growing up because I was quite shy and didn't always know what to say or how to talk to people, but I just was always really interested in people and all different kinds of people. And so when I was asked like, what are you going to do with your life? Who are you? I didn't really know. And I think our whole life is a journey of discovering more and more of who we are. So it's not, for me, it's not a question that firstly is stagnant. So we have an essence of who we are that's reasonably constant, but who we are, we also get to choose who we are. But I think in high school I didn't realize that there was a lot of talk around, oh, well, you go and discover who you are, meaning that I should kind of already know. And so I think that actually put a lot of pressure on, like, why don't I know? Why don't I know who I am, or what I want to do? And so I think especially the last 5 years, but really, my whole life, it's been just testing like who am I, and understanding now more than before that I get to choose that, which
Yeah,
is, I don't know, it can be scary for people to think about that. But
I totally agree. Yeah.
some of the work I've done though is I know that that's the kind of the magic that you're talking, that discovering the magic within. And it's already there. You just have to have the right tools to be able to unlock it. And so that's probably a summary of the journey that I've been on, but there's lots of ups and downs in that
And
time.
yeah. And I love what you talked about is that there's a choice in what you do or who you are and how you find that out as well. For me, I was also maybe I came from a small country town, maybe not as small as where you were from, but it was quite isolating in many ways. And I think what you're saying is you just didn't fit in there. You hadn't found your tribe there. And so when you're in there, it felt even smaller than actually what it was. So you needed to go and spread your wings and you needed to leave there to find and rediscover who you actually were truly underneath. And I guess that's the journey that you've been on, and I know that's the journey that I've been on as well. So I love that. It's the choice piece, though, is you get to choose to do that, or you get to choose to stay where you're at.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. What you were saying about it's, I felt I belonged to a point, but I think I was because I was more open than most people. I don't know. There was something that just helped me really contain who I was. So I kind of felt like I couldn't share who I really was because there was a lot of judgment. Actually, this is probably the main aha is it was a town where there was lots of judgment on people. So you got, judged if you didn't have any money. You got judged if you lived over in that part of town. You got judged if you had different color skin. You got judged for so many things, and I think that's actually the main thing that I guess impacted me in two ways. One is that it then made me wary of putting myself out there, who I truly am, out there because I didn't want to be judged. But also, it just doesn't gel with who I am. Yeah. But saying that, we all, like, we're people, so we do have to make judgments to be able to survive in the world. But I'm sure the listeners will get the distinction between the two.
What dropped in for me then was as much as we think that everyone else is judging us, how much are we also judging ourselves? Because how much many expectations are we putting on ourselves to be a particular way, to act a particular way, all of those sorts of things. Or the opposite. How many expectations are we putting on ourselves to not be a certain way, and that, we can't wear that dress or talk this way or hang out with that person or whatever it might be because we're worried about what everyone else thinks. So there's, I guess I can see two sides of, yes, maybe the judgment from the community, but also the judgment from ourselves that stops us from really showcasing who we are.
Oh, absolutely. And some of the personal development work that I've been doing, you learn about how it, it's it's actually not the judgment of others. It is you. It is entirely you judging yourself,
Yeah.
and it's very freeing to understand that, but not just understand it, to feel the difference of letting that be. So it's there's certainly some wellness perspectives at the moment that is you've got to let it go, push it away. Like it's only the positive. I said positive psychology, but it's only the positive. Like you just want to bring all the positivity to you. And one of the really significant things that I've learned over the last few years is it's not about pushing it away. And in fact, the more you push it away, the more it comes back to you because
Mm.
we individually just want to be seen, heard, and feel like we belong. And the more you push that part of you away, that is that judgmental part, you're not acknowledging that it's there. You're not recognizing that that's part of you too. Like we do judge it, as I said before, it's a necessary part of our lives. So acknowledging and accepting that it exists is one of the first kind of steps to accepting more of yourself.
So tell us the journey that you've been on over the last little while to, I guess, accepting yourself, because there's obviously been a big investment there in time, money, energy, all of the things. But it's absolutely paying off in that, what from what I've seen is just this happier, freer, less feeling like there's less burden on your shoulders. What's going on in the background?
Yeah.
Talk to us about it.
I love that you've noticed that. Thank you. I probably take it back to, and it started before this, but one of the pivotal questions that I was asked was I was put on a leadership course with my work, and part of it included some coaching. And the coach asked me, we'd been working together for about 4 weeks, and the coach asked me, what do you do to turn off your mind? And in my mind, I knew that the answer was, oh, okay, so you can turn off your mind. But in my mind, I'm going, are you kidding me? Turn off my mind? What? I know that you're telling me that the answer is I can turn it off. I have no idea, not even the smallest idea. My mind won't let me turn my mind off. Is what was going on in my mind.
There's a little switch that you can just go boop, and it turns off. I'm totally kidding.
I don't know. I think I was sitting on it, like I just seriously couldn't see it. And so it, but that's the beauty of coaching questions. The really high quality ones is,
Yeah,
they get you thinking. And even though I had no idea in the moment how to answer the question, but even just that I could actually turn my mind off. So my answer was, after probably about 2 or 3 minutes of searching every depth of my brain,
let your mind how to turn it off. That sounds great.
my answer was, I don't. And she was a beautiful coach. She said to me, "Oh, Rochelle, I thought you might say that."
And you really need to switch it off.
Well, no, she did. So what was beautiful about it was she said it in a way that reinforced that I was on a journey to find the answer for myself, but that she was not judging me, that I couldn't find the switch. So
Great. That's great. I love it.
yeah, so that was, it was really beautiful. And so I think that's one of the key questions that I've been asked by a coach. And so then, yes, I started to look for ways to turn off my brain. And as well, part of my job, I was doing some research around burnout, and sort of culture and work health and safety is the space that I'm in and have been for a while. And so I was doing some research, and a course popped up on, I don't even know what I was searching on, whatever I was searching on. And it was around burnout. And so I started that, and it was, I think, a 6-week course, and it just was starting to, one, help me probably regulate my nervous system, because I was so anxious that I had a whole lot of stuff going on. My son was going through some stuff at school. My grandparents were not well. What else? There was stuff going on at work that also was emotionally draining. So no, my brain wasn't turning off. There was too much to think through and plan through. So that it was that course, and again, I didn't realize at the time, but the course was a coaching course as well, and it connected co-regulating your nervous system, as well as helping you prioritize what's important to you, but also starting to look at boundaries and like, so your needs, emotion, and boundaries, because lots of people don't realize, we're not taught it at school, that there's a connection between needs, emotions, and boundaries, and how to even do that. So that's sort of where it started. And then conversations with you. I've had some just amazing coaching opportunities. And so that has then evolved my personal development journey as well, because for me, everything I learn in terms of personal development, I then translate into how I work with people, whether that's in a work health and safety sense, a coaching sense, my kids, my partner, you and I think it's just that continual, I love learning about me, and I love learning about people. And so that's definitely something that has just carried me through. Like, I've got stuck at certain points, and we can talk about some of those stuck points. But that's what's carried me through, is learning, growing, moving. And what I really love about coaching is the work health and safety as well. It's about how you influence people. It's not even influence, you offer people an opportunity to change their perspective, and that can get them unstuck. That can take them to the next level of whatever they choose, whatever like is their dream for what they want to do. And that dream could be as big as being a CEO of a company, or it could be as big as having a more meaningful relationship with your child.
Yeah, I love that. And if we take a step back, you are extremely successful in your career and your life as a whole. Yet there was still a feeling around, I want more, or I want it to be better, whatever the narrative was. So
The
your
narrative's the
journey,
narrative's pretty simple. The narrative has pretty much always been, I wasn't enough. Whatever I was doing wasn't enough.
yeah, okay. So how do I become enough? How do I be enough? And really, you always were enough. It's just the stories that were in your head were telling you that you weren't. So how do we shake them off? And I'm sure there's lots of listeners out there that have either had this story running through their mind or have this story running through their mind. What are some of the things that you did to start, I guess, changing that narrative, changing that story? Because that good enough story or not good enough story, it can basically make you freeze in life and you don't do anything. And so even if you are really successful, you'll never get to that next level because you don't know how. You're just stuck, you're frozen. So what are some of the things, some of the strategies, or even, some examples that you have done, or maybe you've seen someone else do that has enabled you to take that step forward? It doesn't have to be that you've gotten to that next level, but even just one step forward.
Yeah, beautiful question. And so there's some big moments and some big things, but then probably they seemed bigger to me because I was in them than maybe what they were from the outside, and that's okay. But some of the small things, so building momentum is like one little step at a time. You don't have to take huge steps. It's great if you do, but you don't have to. So things like, so self-care that includes like doing something physical. So I love team sports. Don't always love, you know, the really cold winters and getting out playing team sports, but I've fallen in love with Pilates, and so just doing something physical I really enjoy, and it's something that I've enjoyed my whole life But what I find is when I get stuck, that they're the things that I stop doing. And so committing to myself and, to get up and do Pilates. So that's one of the little things. Taking time for me, which is really hard as a mum, and when you've got lots of things going on, what I want and need often goes to the back of the pile or the bottom of my to-do list. Sometimes doesn't even make it onto my to-do list. Excuse me. So it's taking those opportunities to acknowledge that I'm worth it. I'm worth putting that time and commitment and love into, and that's been a journey, because sometimes you don't feel worth it. But again, it's a little step that builds momentum.
What if we go down a little bit more of a vulnerable path? Because
Absolutely.
vulnerability is part of the journey, I guess. And so for me, there's been some really big things that I've had to face, but it's meant that it's essentially been a breakthrough for me, but it's about getting really vulnerable. And so I can give you an example from my perspective is a piece of my story that has been holding me back for a long time, which consciously I kind of got it. I didn't really understand how deep it was subconsciously, was the fact that I didn't have kids. And the judgment that society makes on you about this, but also the judgment that you make to yourself about this. And that's something that I've slowly unpacked over the last few years, but it has meant getting really vulnerable in lots of different ways about that and essentially finding peace. So, if I guess following on from that, what are some of the big vulnerable moments that you might have had in your breakthroughs or your journey that have just gone, oh, that's a big piece of my story that I'm about to rewrite or claim and accept?
So vulnerability is actually one of them. Um, I grew up very independent, and it was not that my family doesn't show emotion. It's not that, but being open to put yourself out there in a vulnerable way and to let people see that maybe I'm not strong all the time is something that I've really, really struggled with. And so, what that means is that one of the things that has been hard for me is asking for help and
Mm.
asking for support.
And
Something that,
receiving that support.
and receiving it, yes. Yeah, it's probably harder than receiving it. So it's a work in progress, because it's a pattern that's come from my childhood. So I've reinforced it, for my whole life.
Is this about bringing the walls down and saying, it's okay that I don't know everything? It's okay that I'm not number one in that space or that arena, if that makes sense. There are other people out there that either could help me, could do it better, could do it easier, whatever the, you know, thing is. It's admitting that and saying, actually, you know what, I'm just going to outsource this, or I'm going to ask for help, or I'm going to get someone else to do that, or I'm going to delegate, or I'm actually just going to not do it if someone else does it.
Yeah, I have tried that. I can talk about that in a sec. I think one of my stories, which has both a resourceful and unresourceful aspect to it, is I can do it. Whatever comes my way, I can work it out. I can do it because that's who I am. I can work it out. And I still believe that, but one of the unresourceful parts of that belief, that story, is therefore I don't need help from anyone else because I can work it out. And so part of balancing the resourceful and unresourceful elements of it is recognizing that asking for help is is not a weakness. Like, it's not a weakness. It's not a it doesn't mean that the follow on judgment from that is that then I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
because the story is so I can do it, and therefore if I let someone else do it, then I couldn't do it. And so I think my relationship with the I can do it, but I'm choosing not to. And I'm not choosing not to because I'm not enough. I'm not adequate. I can't do it. I'm choosing not to because actually, as you were saying, like, it's going to be faster for someone else to do it. I could do it, but it's going to take me longer. So let's delegate it, outsource it, and then so that's very general and has kind of flowed out and is evident in lots of parts of my life. But bringing it down to a very specific example is, so, when kids are little, they can't do that much. But so I would do all the washing, most of the cleaning, not all the cleaning, but and not all the cooking, but most of the cooking. And I would work as much as my partner, but I definitely had more of the share of everything. And as my kids have gotten older, I have, instead of trying to go, well, I can do it, I've gone, okay, well, no, I'm not cleaning up those toys after you. I'm going, and sometimes that annoys me, right? Like, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, can you please just clean up your toys or put that drink bottle away, those 10 drink bottles away that are on the bench. So there's a lot of self-discipline required, but part of it is, well, how much does it really matter and how much does it really matter? And one of the things I've been doing more recently, my kids are sort of, almost all in high school now, is they get to cook once a week. And the younger one, I help a little bit, but for the most part, you do it. Like, there's a rest. Like, I'll help them with a recipe, although one of my kids likes to try and cook without a recipe. I try and be very. Most of the time, he does pretty well. Like, most of the time, it's really good. But I don't know. I should have had the foresight of, like, when he was 4 and up to sort of around 9, him and his sister used to get up early in the morning and create things and put them in the microwave. It's like I'd get up and go, what is that smell? Edible. So he's improved since then. We can eat. Like, he's made some really yummy things. But I think if I'm to do it all myself, one, like, I'm robbing them the opportunity of learning life skills, which they need, but also, why do I have to do it all? Why do I have to do it all? Why? Because that's what my mum did. She also worked, but not as much as what I do. But, she cleaned after everyone. And I remember when I was about 16, she had this huge meltdown because none of us helped her do anything. So I kind of learned from that a little bit, but it took a while. Like, at some point I realized, oh yeah, no, I am just doing what she did. But I realized it sooner. So I feel like there's a bit of growth.
Let's talk about control in this, because you wouldn't be the only person that this story hits hard with. I think we've all either been through this or maybe we're going through it at the moment. Is this about control because we want things the way that we want things? Or is it that, like you say, I want a really clean house and it's really important to me that the house is clean and your drink bottles are all over the place. I just want you to clean it up. and all of a sudden you're missing maybe the fun that's happening on. So is it about control? Is it about presence? Is it about, like, I don't know, like where's the, I guess, where's it coming from?
Yeah, great question. I think it's probably about all those things and some others as well. Part of it's definitely about control because what I was saying before about, my mind not turning off. So my mind was chaos and not turning off. And so I was forever trying to organize it so it wasn't so chaotic. It's much easier to organize a house than what it is to organize my mind. So from that perspective, yeah, absolutely. And as well, if I'm not sitting in chaos, then my mind is a little bit less chaotic too. So yes, control. For me, I think it really ties back to my highest value is around my children. And I just want to give them the opportunity, like whatever opportunities they want to have. And I want to be able to see them experience a lot of, like, I don't have to be with them 24/7, but I want them to have every opportunity they could possibly have so that they can enjoy everything that they choose to do. And so I think for the most part it's really driven by that is, and then the tidy house is, a pattern from childhood and my grandmother and mother and all of however long that went on through my history. But I think for the most part, it is really linked to my value around my children and then getting back into the judgment. When I was a kid, even though my mum worked, she didn't work when I was younger. And I don't, I didn't ever, I'm pretty confident that I didn't ever compare myself to her going, oh, well, because I'm working, then I'm somehow less of a mother. I'm pretty confident about that. But absolutely, at different points, maybe not even at different points, I think just as a standard, I have this thing where I'm at work and then I feel guilty for like not spending more time with my kids because I have such a high value on my kids and being a mother to them. Even if I'm doing well at work, that means nothing for them. But at the same time, I also do have a high value, just not as high a value as my kids. I have a high value on, I don't know whether it's my career exactly, but on making a difference in the work that I do is probably how I would describe that. I do have a really high value on that as well. And so, along with high value, then comes the expectation, and then that's where the judgment comes in, and all of that we've been talking about. And so absolutely I would be at work and then feel guilty for not spending time with my kids, and then I'd be at home and then feel guilty for not having finished something or done it to the quality that for the most part it was my expectation around the quality of what I was delivering, because I have a high value on making a difference through the work that I do. And so that's always been kind of like a seesaw every day. Every day it's a seesaw.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel I'm balanced and sometimes I feel like I'm not. So
And that's okay.
yeah.
It is what it is. And then it's about taking the next step forward, or the next day is the next day. So how could you do things differently if, it didn't go as smoothly that other day? But I think the key thing, what you're saying, is remove the judgment so you can take that step forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I would describe it as acknowledge the judgment. The judgment's going to be there because if I don't set expectations, then like that's part of how we do move forward and how we grow. And so it's not about not setting expectations or not even not having judgment, but acknowledging that the judgment's there. And if I don't quite hit where I want to, well, okay, I don't quite hit where I want to. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It doesn't mean that I'm not worthy or not enough. And I can sit here and say that to you now because I have done quite a bit of work around that. I would say 12 months ago, I would either be crying or not able to have that conversation with you right now.
Yeah, wow. That's great. It's great that you can see where you've come from to where you are now. But there must be an element of feeling a lot freer because you can, I guess, say that and have that conversation
Yeah,
and know that the whole world's not going to fall down, afterwards.
absolutely one of the things. Well, there's probably two fundamental shifts. There's so many more, but two fundamental shifts for me are firstly that whatever it is, I will be okay. Whatever it is, whatever comes, I will be okay. I think there's a quote that talks about, you only get presented with what you can handle. I have no idea who said it, but you're nodding, so obviously you've heard it before.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah,
So that's one of the things that I carry with me is which is kind of tied a little bit to that belief that I've always had that I can do it. And so really that's reinforced for me that, and it's choosing to have that as a resourceful way of thinking, and so that I'm choosing when it's to not apply it when it's not resourceful for me in a moment. But the other thing is, I I am 100% responsible for the decisions that I make, whether or not I'm conscious of the decisions that I'm making, whether I'm aware that I'm making that decision, or whether I make the decision unconsciously because I'm being run by fear or guilt or any of those other um, beautiful emotions. If I'm being run by any of those, then I will still make decisions. I just won't be aware of them. And if I'm not aware of them, then I can't choose to do it differently. Um, and so knowing that I am 100% responsible for my decisions, I then have a thirst to understand more, and to expand my understanding of what is driving my decisions, so that I have a choice, because I don't have a choice if I'm not aware of one, that there was a decision made or what was driving it, which ties back to my values. So for listeners, if you haven't done like a values analysis or elicitation, I highly recommend that you do a values session.
I agree.
Download. A coach will take you through it in an hour and a half as well. So, but it's really enlightening to understand where your values are, because whether you're aware of it or not, they drive your decisions.
100%. 100%. It was one of the big things for me that, well, it was a big piece of the puzzle for me that I worked through, was to, well, what are my values, first of all? And then where do they sit? What, from a priority perspective, because that's actually really key and really important, because it will drive your behaviors, your actions, the decisions that you make, choices, all of those sorts of things. So 100% important.
And I've got a
Yeah.
I've got a vulnerable example. I
Yeah.
feel like it's vulnerable because it's about how people
We
might
love vulnerability
how
here.
people might see me. So for I reckon probably a couple of years in my work, there would be certain types of briefings that I would have to do. So putting together information to my boss about whatever it was. And for the most part, from my perspective, One, I knew that I had to do it. So there was, an expectation that I had to do it. So therefore, there was an expectation from me that I had to do it well. And it would come around, like, it would happen about 4 times a year. So, it's not that I didn't know it was going to happen. It would happen. The content changed kind of each quarter, but it was a tick the box exercise. And so, because my one of my highest values is around making a difference through the work that I do, I just looked at this task and went, that is such a waste of my time. But on the other hand, like, I knew that my boss would be disappointed in me if I didn't deliver it. And actually, it's, one of my key performance indicators that I have to do it. But there was this disconnect between my value on making a difference and on that task. And so I would procrastinate, generally write it, in the last 24 hours. Some of it required research. So sometimes I'd stay up, till 2 in the morning doing it because I'd procrastinated on it, because it was kind of like a clash of values or approval. So I wanted my boss's approval that I was doing a good job. So I needed to get it. I needed to get it to a high quality. But at the same time, it was just such a waste, from my perspective, such a waste of time in terms of making a meaningful difference to the people that I work with. And so even now, I still struggle with some of those tasks that I see as not, they just don't make a difference to people in the workplace. But someone said I had to do it. Actually,
And
sometimes
that,
the law says I have to do it, but
yeah. And you're spot on with, I mean, that's your example around that difference between values and how procrastination can come in. And you could replace that with anything. For me, it's always going to the gym. It's not actually, going to the gym is not actually in my top values. So why don't I want to go to the gym? And this is where, when the disconnect happens and you understand what your values are, you can then go, okay, all right, what else do I need to do? Is there discipline that needs to be involved? Is there, a habit that needs to be formed? Like, you can then start to problem solve if that's something that you need to do or have to do or want to do. What do you need to do to change to make it either higher in your values or to change your mindset around it, essentially?
yeah, I think, is there a simple answer? I was going to say the simple answer is there's probably not a simple answer, but I think the answer that springs to my mind is there's an exercise that you can do, that it's just a series of questions that gets you to look at what it means to you in connection to your highest value.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be lower on your values, but maybe you choose it because you know it's good for you, even if it's a lower value. So I would say it's not so much about moving it up in your values, because if it was higher in your values, you'd have evidence of it being a value in your life. But you can ask, okay, so what does that thing, what does going to the gym give you to what's your highest value?
Love.
Love. So how does going to the gym give you more love in your life?
And it's all about self-love. So going to the gym would serve me purpose. Obviously, going to the gym is quite a broad statement. Going to the gym could mean I'm going to a yoga class or a dance class or, going to a cycle class or whatever. You know, so how is that connected back to self-love? Because love is very broad, but ultimately, if you don't have self-love, that's really one of the big ticket items for me.
For you, and it'll be different for everyone. So whoever's listening, it'll be different for them. But how does that thing that you want more to do more of in your life, how does that give you more of your top value. And
Yeah.
you you can stack the reasons, and the more that you
Yeah.
can the more that your brain hears the stack, then the
You
the
start to do it.
resistance
Yeah.
reduces, because you're not seeing that thing as something that you don't want to do or that's painful. You're seeing it what it's giving you to move you to your higher value.
Yeah. Yeah. It's they're great exercises and highly recommend, figuring out what your values are and not just picking words, actually understanding what those words mean and actually then testing if they actually are your true values or if they are just words on a page.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key is like, what are your actual true values? Because you might actually be surprised. They're actually very different to what you chose or thought of. So, yeah. So, you've been on a journey the last few years. Lots of different stuff has come up for you. You've had some big moments, you've had some small moments. Just before we got on this episode, you were talking about a really recent course that you'd done, and it was around quantum healing.
Yeah, quantum
The
coaching,
quantum.
quantum.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what that means for you and how that's helped you from, I guess, continuing to move forward and continuing to move to that next step.
Yeah, it's a very big field, so trying to narrow it down in just a few minutes will be a challenge. So bear with me. So quantum coaching and healing it's looking at the connection. So it's holistic. It's looking at the holistic connection
Yeah.
between um, your nervous system, your your automatic decision making elements of your brain. So your amygdala, is a survival mechanism. So it's the yes no decision making of your lower brain, but then also looking at how if you how do you expand your awareness so that you're making decisions consciously, because your amygdala, that survival mechanism, is making automatic decisions, and the role then that your nervous system plays in how active your amygdala is, and then how much of your higher brain or your consciousness you can access, but then also how that ties into um, the universe and the forces within the universe and the laws of the universe. So, for example, what I just described is like the law of equilibrium. It's that there's a kind of a span of balance that we operate in, and if we swing too far one way, we see mania, really high energy, anger. But when we swing the other way, we swing into, low mood, depression. And so quantum coaching, it's layers and layers of things, but it's about helping people have more awareness over the decisions that they're making. So expanding your awareness, but understanding that to do that, if your nervous system is not regulated, you just you can't expand. So that the starting point, you can start with your thoughts, you can start with trying to change your thoughts, but your thoughts reinforce your emotions and your behaviors. So if you only work on one, if you only work on your thoughts, or you only work on your nervous system, you don't get the same longer term change. And so the course was looking at how, as a coach, I can help co-regulate for someone's nervous system if they're not able to do it themselves, because it's something that you learn. It's like a muscle. You build the muscle around regulating your nervous system. It's not something. It's not a switch like my brain. That wasn't a switch either. In fact, this is kind of what we're talking about. So, really, if I had have known back then, things like meditation and being near someone who is regulated helps you regulate your immune system, which then opens up your ability to make more conscious decisions because you're aware of more options. Because if you are in such a state where your brain's going everywhere, like mine was, um, I wasn't functioning through my executive part of my brain, my prefrontal cortex. I was really just in survival. It was all these things are coming at me. So, um, yeah, there was no conscious decision making. I was just kind of like a
Fight
ping
or
pong,
flight.
fight or flight.
I know for me, I think probably the last 10 years of my corporate career was sitting in fight or flight. And when I operated, it was kind of like I got in the car and I got to the next place and I'm like, oh, how did I get there kind of thing. It was just, I was in automatic mode. And when I left my corporate career, all of a sudden I changed how I was operating. So there was a lot more time invested in me, who I was. There was a lot more slowness. There was a lot more downtime. And now I can actually recognize the difference when I'm sitting in fight or flight mode versus when I'm sitting in that slowness and how I then operate. Outwardly, I guess I can see the difference. And it's been a game changer from my perspective of how do you actually operate with intention versus, like you say, from a position of survival. So, what are some of the things that you have done to obviously flip from moving from that survival mode into, I guess, that more intentional kind of living or operating?
So the first thing I would like to acknowledge that you in your journey, because it really was a big switch for you. It was a big flip for you. And yeah, I'm in awe of how brave you were to take that journey, like take that decision to flip. For me, it wasn't one big change. It's just been lots of little incremental changes. And it doesn't really matter why we've chosen different paths. I think for me, part of it's what I've already talked about. So one is taking 100% responsibility for my decisions, for my choices, and as well prioritizing me. That has been a long journey that continues. Um, I think one of the other things is my relationship with my partner and understanding. I remember you asked me a question. I think this also was one of the most profound coaching questions that I've ever been asked. And just for the listeners, the context was I'd been in a job for about 8 years and probably stayed too long. And I had the opportunity to take a redundancy, and my partner is very, very risk averse. And Kylie, you asked me the question, what if my partner says, no, don't take it? And my response was, well, it's not his decision. He can have an opinion about it, but ultimately, it's not him that has to come to work here every day. It's me, and I don't want to. And so that question really helped me to understand more about myself, but also it meant it helped me understand where my partner ends and where I start. Because I trust that some of the people listening here might not have the confidence to make a decision yet that is not consistent with what their partner's views are.
Because we'll upset them or
So many,
disappoint them
so many
or we'll
reasons.
feel guilty. And
Or it's
all
just not
very
done.
relevant, or is it not relevant, I guess, is the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a story here that, as a couple, as a relationship, that you can't have different opinions on things. Or if you do, it means, oh, I shouldn't be with that person. Now, that's not the case. I mean, my partner and I, we vary on our views on different things quite a lot on some particular topics, but it's about having the conversations about them and knowing where each other stands and actually respecting that each other do have those opinions, and then kind of, okay, well, how are we going to work this out? How are we going to navigate it? But it's not about one person controlling what the outcome is. And I think that's the key, and that's probably what you're ultimately getting to, is you got to make that decision. It wasn't his decision.
Absolutely.
However, you appreciated his input
Yes, his
or his
input.
view.
And just to put it in context, so his input, his feedback to me was, "What if you don't get a job?" And I turned that into a story of, "You don't support me," which was that's a very interesting dynamic. But what I didn't recognize at the time, or maybe I started to realize after, is firstly it is my decision because it's my life. As much as my partner might be struggling with the decision that I'm making, it is ultimately my life. But he had some stories that he was telling himself about, well, if I didn't have a job, what does that mean? What does that mean for our family financially? What does that mean? And it's not that I wasn't considering those things. I considered all those things. It's just that we have a different risk threshold when we make decisions,
Yes.
especially around money. My husband's much more risk averse around money. So he was projecting on me by saying, "What if you don't get a job?" But it was coming from his fear. And even though my response to you was, "Well, it's my decision," that still weighed very heavily. His response to me, his reaction to me, still weighed very heavily on my mind. And the little bit of doubt that I did have about making the decision, it just magnified that. Which then, because we talked about it, but I held on to it, and so certainly resulted in some resentment toward him because I told myself a story that it was that he wasn't supporting me, which is reasonable or not for me to have that story. But ultimately, it was being driven by his fear. It wasn't about me, actually, at all.
Yeah. Very interesting. So interesting. We as humans are such interesting creatures, and I guess the meaning that we put on everything actually can mean everything, in that, it takes us down a pathway that maybe we didn't need to go down, or maybe we did. There's no right or wrong. There's no black and white. It's about holding the paradigm, I should say. You know, how can we make that decision, but also feel uncomfortable with the fact that it was a different decision to what your partner would make? Like, how do we hold that, and how do we then continue to move forward with that? And yeah, it's something that you just have to sit with and work through. And sometimes it's just practice and doing it.
And
Got to
knowing,
do it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
knowing. So I really love what you said before about sitting with it, sit with the discomfort of it, but knowing that you will be okay. They might react absolutely as bad as what, or not bad, but to the extreme as what you think that they're going to react to whatever conversation it is you're having, whatever decision you've made. They might react to that extreme. They might not, but know that you will be okay. You will be okay. And you can worry about it, or you can have the conversation, and you'll be okay.
And I would say, and I guess there's proof in it that, this particular situation that you're talking about was it 8 years ago now?
Yeah, about that.
So look at you now. and the success that you've had in that 8 years. So the proof is that the whole world didn't fall down.
No, it
You
didn't.
did find another job. You have been successful. You continue to be successful, and life will be okay. So I guess it's, what you're saying there is everything will be okay because you've got proof and you've got, evidence that's just continuously being stacked up to say, hey, if I make a difficult decision, it might be a little bit challenging in the moment, but life's going to be okay. I can deal with whatever comes my way.
Yeah, and when I say I'm going to be okay, that doesn't mean that I won't potentially feel scared, that I won't feel fear, that everything will be easy. That's quite different to, so all those things. I could feel all those things. But I'll still be okay.
Yes,
I can be scared and I'll be
absolutely.
okay. I can cry and be sad and still be okay. I can be more than one thing at one time. Dialing back to
Yeah.
what we started talking about, who am I? I'm lots of things packaged in who I am, and I'm sometimes sad, I'm sometimes angry, I'm sometimes scared, and I'm a mother, I'm um, a team leader, I'm a friend, I'm so many things, and I can be all those things at once. I'm not one thing.
I love that. I love that for you. And I love that that's where you're at right now. That you don't feel like you have to choose to be one or the other, that you can hold it all. And there are going to be times where you need to lean into one more than another, at a particular point in life or a season that you're going through or whatever that might be. It doesn't mean that you have to stop being one to be the other.
When I was first thinking about who am I, and even I would say like around that 8 year ago mark when, I started looking at how to learn more about me, I started off with this vision, like this view that this story that I had to work out what is the thing that I am, and I'm not one thing. And again, there wasn't even a coaching question. I can't remember what I had said, and my coach said back to me, but I was talking about purpose, and I asked a question, and which I can't remember what it was specifically, but my coach said, "But Rochelle, you've got so many purposes. You're a mother. That's a purpose. You're a leader of your team. You're all," and she went through lots of other things. You're all those things. You're not one thing. You don't have one purpose. And I think that's really interesting with some of the rhetoric around at the moment is it's find your purpose.
Mm.
Yeah, you're not just one dimensional, and that's sort of quantum coaching is around that as well. You're not one dimensional. There's so many things that go to make up who we are. And so it's really exploring what are all those things, and what how do you want to choose to take those forward and be in life.
And if we loop back, continuing with that, if we loop back to the whole purpose of this podcast, is that all of those things we have inside of us.
Absolutely.
So we don't need to go find them. I guess what I talk about is rediscovering them, is because they are inside us. We've just hidden them with stories, with fear, with, whatever else we load onto ourselves. And when we clear that, all of a sudden the magic appears.
Yeah.
And it's about being confident enough to take that step forward and say, I'm here. This is me, warts and all, whatever it is, but I am the magic and I'm going to do my thing.
which I just love.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
that. Because, yeah, I
it,
agree. It really is about expanding your internal awareness about who you are. So reconnecting and rediscovering what was already there. You just weren't aware of it. At some point, you lost awareness of it.
yeah.
Mm.
And it's whether that those expectations, because a new role has come into our world, i.e., we've become a mother, or we've become a leader, or we've become an aunt, whatever it is, we think that when we become this new person, we have to give up everything else. No, we don't. We can be it all, and we get to choose.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, we get to choose.
And that is the magic, is that we get to choose. We get to choose which bits we keep the most of, and which bits maybe for the next little while don't need to be so prevalent, but they're still all part of us, and we get to choose how we translate that into a life that we love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been a really beautiful conversation. You and I often have quite deep conversations, really meaningful. I think that's what our friendship is built on. And we probably don't get to have them enough more recently, but I always love them. And I always learn things from you, and just the back and forth that we have, where we kind of teach each other stuff, which is really cool, because that doesn't always happen in different relationships. So I think it's beautiful when we allow that to happen. I think it's really great. So I wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing who you are and a little bit about your journey. I mean, I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg on there's so much more.
Absolutely.
What is one thing, to finish it off, what is one thing that you'd really love to share with the listeners about, if you look back on everything that you've done, and if there's one big thing that could help somebody either start their journey or continue, if they've already started, continue on that journey, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to people?
There's a quote, and that is, you can feel the fear and do it anyway, because life is not meant to be easy. If it was easy, then we'd kind of get bored, and our brain helps us search for all the threats in our life, and so it's trying to tell us to be scared of things to stop us getting hurt, which I think is really, really beautiful. So if we accept that I've got I've got me, I'm going to be okay, and my brain is going to make me feel fear, it's its job, and that is beautiful. So feel the fear and do what you want to do anyway. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Don't let fear hold you back. Just keep taking those steps. And it doesn't have to be huge steps. It just has to be one small step, and then the next day take another step. And in 365 days' time, who knows where you'll be.
Blown away by the change. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much. And I guess one last thing for our listeners is, where can they find you if they want to either learn more about you, or, talk to you about some of the things that you've done to create your transformation?
Great question. I send you my details so that you can include in the podcast. For those listening, if you search me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Rochelle Von Berger, there is only one of me in the world. I can guarantee it.
Excellent. And yes, I'll pop your name in the notes. And as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for coming on. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode. And remember, everything is inside of you and that you are the magic. Go out there and chase those dreams. Don't let fear stop you. See you next time. Bye for now.